Hello, guten Tag und grüß Gott. Heute ist Januar, der 28. und es ist ein Sonntag. Und ein schöner Tag ist ebenso sonnig. Bei uns war eben viel Regen in den letzten Tagen und so sehen wir eben einen schönen Tag aus heute. Und ich denke, die Temperatur draußen ist ungefähr zwischen 60 und 70 Grad Fahrenheit, of course. So mache ich eben nochmal ein Video heutzutage oder heute. Und so, was geht es eben in der Welt? Well, da ist Krieg. Da ist Krieg im Osten, da ist Krieg im Süden und die Leute können sich nicht verstehen. So muss man es eben überbrauchen. Das ist wahrscheinlich kein gutes deutsches Wort. Mein Deutsch ist eben nicht mehr so gut, aber ich möchte eben über den Regen sprechen. So, es ist manchmal wie 7 Jahre sind die trockene Jahre und dann 7 Jahre haben wir eben Regen. Und wir haben den großen Ozean neben uns mit dem ganzen, mit dem Wasser. Und wir können eben keine Wasserkläranlage bauen, weil unsere Regierung wissen eigentlich nicht, wie das zu machen. Und das ist eben es ist toll, dass man das nicht machen kann. Sonst wir haben eben das viele Wasser hier und dann haben wir trockene Jahre, wo die Pflanzen sterben und wir müssen das Wasser, wie heißt man das? Man kann das eben, mein Deutsch ist eben nicht mehr so gut, aber ich wollte ein bisschen Deutsch sprechen. So haben wir dieses Jahr ein El Niño-Jahr. So, das heißt eben, dass die Pazifik, der Südpazifik, wird eben ein bisschen wärmer. Und dann, als die Winde dann kommen und die Luft kühlt sich ab, dann bringt es den Regen into Kalifornien. So, manchmal haben wir El Niño. Das ist eben die maskuline, der große Regen, der Herr auf Regens. Und dann haben wir auch La Niña, das ist eben das Kind auf El Niño. Und dann haben wir ein wenig Regen. So geht es eben. 7 trockene Jahre und 7 nasse Jahre. So, vielleicht brauchen wir einen Moses, um uns zu helfen hier, sodass wir eine nicht trocken und nicht nasse Jahre haben und haben genug Wasser, um die Tiere zu fügen und die Pflanzen, das Gras muss das eben, braucht doch eben das Wasser. So, well, I'm not going to continue speaking in German because that's not going so well. Yeah, I'm not really happy with how I speak in German, but anyway, you will see that this is, at least, I have a little bit of German left in me, you'll notice. But anyway, So what's going on in the world? Let me just quickly go through things. For instance, the Wall Street Journal, the Houthis are still targeting the Red Sea with attacks, and it's really interesting. Is that we're wiping out all kinds of radar installations, so forth, but they still manage to put drones up in the air and missiles, and raising hell in the Red Sea. Trump wins the Iowa caucus and DeSantis is far behind. Well, this is now kind of old news because DeSantis actually quit. So the judge blocks JetBlue purchase of Spirit. So, not all companies can become mega companies. And so that's kind of interesting, is that, airline mergers are not really thought about as a good thing in the country. So Iraq wants to have our troops out of there, and that makes sense because, we don't want to really be in Iraq anyway with troops. So Iraq seeks exit of U.S.-led coalition. So, and that also means the Brits and, Canadians and, I don't know, there's some others over there. And it sounds like they can govern themselves now. So it probably won't be long before they once again fall into apostasy of terrorism. Somebody will arise, and say, hey, this is bullshit, Islam, is taking over the world and we're going to provide the leadership. So, and then we have to go back in and, we have to go back in with, what do they call it? Shock and awe. Yeah, it's terrible, people have to die. What else is happening here? Well, so interesting that Pakistan retaliates inside Iran. So evidently, Pakistani terrorists, anti-Pakistanis, are fleeing to Iran, and the Pakistanis are attacking them there. And the Iranian terrorists, or terrorists against Iran, they're fleeing into Pakistan, and Iran is attacking them in there. So that's really interesting, right? So New Hampshire primaries are going to happen, and of course here is DeSantis quits. So I'm just going to hold that up, DeSantis quits. So what do we have? We have Trump and Haley. And as it turns out, that Haley actually lost also in New Hampshire, so I'm not sure what she's going to do, but she claims that she's going to fight on, So Trump notches a New Hampshire win. There we go. So Tesla warns of slower growth in 2024. So, it seems like, our embracing of electric transportation is not going as fast as the governments would like to have, because, the cities, being electric, only having electric cars, of course the air would be cleaner and so forth. But you really have to worry about infrastructure, where you're going to get the electricity. It's not all coming from the sun or renewables. It's going to come from power plant infrastructure, and I'm not sure that we're actually ready for that. But Tesla warns of slower growth in 2024. Well, there's more competition coming on. There are also the Chinese are coming on with electric cars, in a big way. As a matter of fact, they're producing more cars than Tesla is doing right now. So, there was an article just recently, that a quarter Chinese companies, I think it was BHG or something like that, actually overtook Tesla for production. But, I noticed since we do have two Teslas, and, there may be a Cybertruck in the future here shortly, the automatic driving or the autonomous driving is really, really coming along fast, because every new iteration or every new update, changes things, and it's getting better and better. And it wasn't until recently I hadn't been able to drive autonomously from distance from one place to another place without, at least interfering a couple of times because I was afraid something's going to happen, But recently I drove from, the center of the city to my house, and it wasn't until I got to the gate where I actually had to take over because the steering started to dither. In other words, the steering wheel started to go back and forth, several times, and I said, this is. So I stepped on the brake and took over, But it did make all the turns, And when the people in front of me were slow, and the lane was open to the left, it went into a passing mode, and it just drove pretty much like one would drive in a city. So I'm really astonished, that it's coming along so fast and so good. Anyway, so there you have that. So Iran is causing all these problems, all over the world, or at least in the, in the Middle East, because they're providing all the arms, and they have all these groups, like like Hamas and Hezbollah that are, basically their proxies. So the U.S. actually gave Iran a warning. They knew there would be an attack in Iran. It says Iran got warning from U.S. on an ISIS attack. And the attack that came to Iran actually killed 80 people, and it was called, so a suicide bomber, went into a crowded area and blew himself up. And evidently, we had intelligence. The U.S. had intelligence that, that they were going to do that. And so they actually knew when and where. And they gave that information to Iran, and Iran didn't act on it. That's fascinating, because Iran is really kind of our enemy. The French farmers, are really pissed off. They, invaded Paris, certain areas of Paris with their farm equipment, and slowed down traffic and everything. And so now this one here is really, so French farmers' protest turns wild and woolly. And holy crap, look at this, the sheep. Oh, man. Those French farmers, they're not taking any crap from their government. So, the World Court rejects demand to order a ceasefire in Gaza. So they're going to let Israel just pound the shit out of those people over there, and that's kind of a tragedy. Now, where do I stand on that with an opinion? I don't know. I'm against war because, I also saw a picture in the paper here that, kids are trying to find shelter, from the bombings and so forth. And having been there, trying to find shelter, in fact, I got caught in it, as a little guy. I was 4 going on 5. I was out there, playing with friends, and suddenly they had an air raid alarm. Of course, we understood the air raid alarms, and there was an alarm that said, find shelter because their airplanes are coming to bomb the area. And while that alarm was going on, all of a sudden bricks started to fly around, I mean, I didn't get hit, but I kind of got out of the way, because, as it turned out, there was a fighter that came in and evidently, was strafing, just shooting up, buildings. So the building that was on the sidewalk where I was, he was shooting at the bricks just above me, so if, it's kind of hard for us here in America, where we haven't had any war since the Civil War, basically. It's kind of hard to understand, what that's like to be in a war zone. And these people and the children, they're suffering right now, and my heart goes out to them. I mean, can I tell Israel to stop? Well, of course not. They have to secure a future for their own country, and Hamas has been hammering away at them. Hamas being supported by Iran and, who knows who else. Okay, it could be, that the Saudis are behind that too, because they're the big money people. They can buy arms and build drones and things like that. And we got to kind of remember, that this Gaza war, is not just about Israel and Hamas. I mean, this has far bigger implications, because it basically, it's still a religious war. It's Islam. If you're a believer, then you belong to the group of Islam. And they have their strifes, with their particular sects, and they're fighting each other also. And of course, that happened in Europe as well, with the Reformation. The 30-Year War was basically a religious war, back in the, I guess, in the 1500s. But anyway, the today, if there is Islam, if you're not a believer, you're in a war zone. Okay, so this is what's going on. So, it's really a broader conflict also, and in Israel it's just a flashpoint. So how are we going to solve this? I have no idea. I actually have no idea. Aliens arriving on the White House lawn, well, that might do it. Might say, this is all bullshit. Now we've got to worry about another civilization somewhere in the cosmos, and that might just change our perspective. But you could stop war, just instantly, by just saying, well, let's go home, But it's far more complicated than that. But talking still about war, I wanted to a little bit elaborate on what's happened, what I talked about last time. Here was my dad, basically on the run. Here was my mom, herding 3 kids, and then of course one of them died, so it was just Walter and I. 3 kids out of a war zone, into safety. And how is it that, we became separated and so forth? I want to make sure that it's understood that this was the end of the war. This was 1944 or 45. And it just did not make any sense to my dad to go and enlist and fight something that is a losing proposition. And so a lot of young men that could have been drafted, they simply did not volunteer, to go to the Russian front and become cannon fodder, so to speak. And my dad was definitely among them. Oh, so he kind of avoided the draft, because he thought he might be drafted, but he actually, he was actually, of the older age group already, because he was, that was for it, so he was in his 30s, and so he was actually part of the Volkssturm, and they could have activated the Volkssturm, but he never got any kind of notice. And the reason he got no notice is because he managed to move around quite a bit. Well, finally, he did wind up, he was corralled and wound up in Dachau, which was one of the Holocaust camps, that was then used for to make sure that Nazis don't escape, bad guys don't escape. And so he wound up in Dachau, and of course he was basically, at that time, partially denazified. And by that I mean partially, is that they were able to let him go, and they understood that he wasn't anybody that they were looking for that did anything bad. There was a guard in some sort of a Auschwitz or anything like that, So, and my dad, he was a helpful guy, he was helping people, not hurting people, So, as a matter of fact, he had Jewish friends in the ghetto in Warsaw, and he would go there because he was a German. He was able to get in there and bring news to his friends there, and it was under the guise that he was having his tailor was there, so his tailor was making clothes for him, but he came and he would bring stuff and bring news from the outside, because these people in the Warsaw Ghetto, they were cut off from, the general news. There were no radios, that they could listen to, so they didn't know what was going on out there. So my dad helped these people, And, my mom, I made a video on this before also, is when I went shopping, and got some food, my mom would actually give me some bread and, some of these, we used to call them semmeln, and they were, kind of a hard roll, kind of like a pretzel roll a little bit, a bun, So we had a bunch of those, She gave me a bag of them to take to the Russian prisoners, And the reason that she was able to send me, because the German guards, they wouldn't do anything to me, they wouldn't hurt a child. But it would have been suspicious. They would have probably shagged her away from that, But you're not going near those prisoners. But so, people helped each other, even though, we were at war and so on. So there were a lot of good stories there that I have, that even though things were really, really bad, there were these moments of humanity, that happened. So, I was also talking about my mom, how she kind of made a living in Schoenstatt, by being a fortune teller. And, you can't, in German, there's, to read cards, was not fortune telling. Okay, that was called Wahrsagen. And, if you just kind of trace, tell the, do a direct translation, it's called truth telling, which is kind of peculiar, that there is such a thing as truth telling, So Wahrsagen is what she did, and I've often asked her, how did you learn to do this? And she may have told me, but I kind of don't remember exactly, what happened, and maybe she was a little bit coy about it. But I tell you one thing, is that I do know that she used to hang around the gypsies a lot, okay? because she used to repeat a story, that she was a little girl, and the gypsies came to town, and so, people would go and visit with them. They would, play music or do the Wahrsagen, read cards, fortune telling. And, and this is how they made money, I mean, the gypsies, really had, sometimes they would fix, pots and pans and things like that, I remember the gypsies coming around Marbach, also, and so we always went there because it was kind of cool, these guys came, with horses and, campers that they would bring along, and then they built fires, and so it was, and you could go there and watch them and talk to them, if you didn't misbehave, they were okay with that. And of course, once the gypsies came to town, everybody locked up their home and stuff like that, because, there was a lot of thievery going on, during that time. Well, anyway, so I kind of suspect, that, she got close to the gypsies, as a kid and learned the trade of Wahrsagen. Well, I tell you what, it's basically saved our butt because, she didn't have any other work, while we were there in Schoenstedt, So she, she did have a big carton of cigarettes, and she did use those cigarettes, as coinage. And when I said carton, it was actually a wooden box that had probably, I don't know, maybe 100 cartons of cigarettes in there, So my dad, figured out that, maybe money wasn't worth anything, but you could get something with cigarettes. And I have to tell you, that, right after the war, coinage was cigarettes, shaving equipment, and the Americans used chocolate as coinage. They could buy anything with chocolate or cigarettes. And women's nylons, I mean, that was coinage. If you had women's nylons, cigarettes, or shaving equipment, like razor blades and things of that nature, or straight razors, because I remember my dad, used to strap his straight razor in and shave his face, with a straight razor, which was very common, and, he would do that. So if you had those things, you could get food. What kind of food? A lot of times cans, maybe vegetables, but let me just tell you, that war times are really, really tough, So, I can't really say that my mom was a fortune teller, but maybe that's a really good translation for English. But in German, it means the truth telling. Okay, so that's so I wanted to make sure that that's kind of understood. The separation between my dad and my mom was essential for the survival of the family. And then, the Germans got organized. So once you made it into what was West Germany, of course, at that time there was no such thing as West Germany, but there were zones. There was the Russian zone, there was the French zone, the British zone, the American zone. So we made it when my mom, with Walter and I, and the 5 boxes that she was responsible for, came to Heidelberg. There was she knew how to get to Heidelberg to it's called a lager, and so I'm not sure, how to translate that into English right now, but anyway, it was a place, where you could, where they actually had food and they kind of took care of us, and so it was a place for refugees to come and assemble and find, what are they going to do next. And there were lists posted, lists of names, and so she found my dad's name, and with my dad's name there was an address, and so she was able to write a letter to him and say, here I am in Heidelberg. We were there only maybe a week or so, and I do remember that particular place. There were hundreds of people there, maybe thousands, but we had a place to sleep, and they had food for us. And but one of the things they did, is that, I think I mentioned it in a previous video, is I became acquainted with DDT because, there was this, they were very afraid of, lice, that people would bring lice in. So what they would do is they had, it was like a cardboard syringe, but it was a pretty good sized one. You know what I mean? Like maybe I don't know, a foot long or 2 feet long. And they would suck up some DDT, and then they would put it in the front of my shirt, and just blow it in there, and so your body, and then they put one in the back, and I tell you what, DDT really worked because we had no lice, we had no bugs, we had nothing, Yeah, and yeah, it's too bad we can't use that anymore because it was killing the California condors, with the eggshells and so forth, and I think it's still having some problems, even with the eagles, in the area, the birds of prey. So it worked really good, but and everybody was, I mean, I remember here in the United States, as they were starting to ban this, by, I think in the 80s, there was a lot of banning of things, because we found out that, it's really bad for the environment, and, there was chlordane. I mean, chlordane was wonderful, because you put that out there and no ants would come across that, So all of that stuff is banned because, it's bad for the, it made its way into the water tables and so forth, so. But I was wondering, DDT, well, it didn't hurt me. Hell, it helped me, so, why do we have to ban that good stuff, But, such it is. Anyway, I think I've done pretty good here with that video, so I have to apologize for my German entry, because it's not scripted. If I had probably scripted it, it might have gone a little better. But I want you to know that I still speak German, and while I may not have the vocabulary at hand, hell, I don't even have the vocabulary in English at hand, But the vocabulary at hand for German, is kind of hard because, I don't speak German to anybody around here, that. And if there were any Germans here, they speak English, so, friend of mine in Santa Barbara, when I go there, they like to speak German. So they speak German to me, I speak English to them, and we get along really famously, because they understand everything and I understand everything, so. I remember that we did that with our parents as well, and Brother John and Heidi, will probably remember that a lot of times, and Peter and Walter, that we spoke English to our parents and they spoke German to us, and hey, it was fine, Anyway, I think I have to bid you farewell. Auf Wiedersehen. Tschüss. And have a wonderful time.